Four Spheres of Knowledge Creation. The Causal Principles by René Bøtker. Part 3. The Creation of Knowledge. Chapter 7. The Content of Knowledge. The experienced reality is a whole, which is subdifferentiable into a finite number of actualized objects in the phenomenal world, and an infinite number of indivisible points in the noumenal world. The knowledge that we create is based on the context of what reality is perceived to be and how it is experienced through human apperception. The content of knowledge is a representation of a phenomenal world in which objects interact in space and time with various levels of differentiation, distributed as mechanisms that makes knowledge demonstrative and performative. These levels consist of objects, interactions, sets, and fields, which exists in a spatial or temporal dimension. The phenomenal world is subdifferentiable into a finite number of objects. In essence, there are only two objects, which represents the most fundamental level of phenomenal representation. The first is an expressing object, and the second is a perceiving object. Any subdifferentiation of these two objects belongs in the noumenal world and consists of indivisible points, as the property that composes potential immaterial objects. In between the entirety of the phenomenal world and the two objects of perception and expression lies the existence of sets. A set is a composite, which is constituted by actualized objects. A set exists as the boundary that exists around a group of actualized objects. A set is a pseudo-object in the sense that it is not a representation of noumenal property of potential objects, but a representation of phenomenal property of actualized objects. In between these actualized objects, which constitutes the set, inherently lies the interactions that have made the actualized object possible. The interactions that have actualized the objects of a set forms a collection of interactions, which constitutes a field. A field is a representation of the interactions that exists between objects in a set. The third level of differentiation is the existence of interacting objects. A phenomenal object is extended in space, which makes it a composite by definition, i.e., that a phenomenal object is always subject to subdifferentiation, following the argument of extension being subdivisible. This would make it a set if it was not for the fact that the subdifferentiation of phenomenal objects is noumenal. Any subdifferentiation of a phenomenal object would be a process of subdividing a potential object into an infinite number of indivisible points. Objects are composites constituted by noumenal substances, which forms a potential object. The potential object is actualized through interactions between expressing and perceiving objects. These interactions exist as analog representations between phenomenal objects.